Very soon we will all see the building of the third temple in Jerusalem.
The strange feeling in Jerusalem today? Why, three religions are waiting for something to happen. From high-level political meetings to underground excavations, from sacred rituals to satellite surveillance, eyes are turning once again toward one question that refuses to go away. Is the third temple closer to becoming reality than we think? At the surface, the city moves as it always has. Pilgrims come and go. Prayers rise from minarets and synagogues. The ancient stones bake in the sun. But beneath that surface, both literally and symbolically, something deeper stirs. There are signs, clear and compelling. Artifacts emerging from the earth. Architectural plans quietly prepared. A mysterious return of red heifers. And an undercurrent of spiritual urgency that seems to grow stronger with each passing year. Could it all be coincidence? Or is something more profound taking shape? This is a journey into the past and through the present, an investigation into buried ruins, ancient promises, and modern preparations. The story unfolds beneath our feet, between nations, and perhaps beyond time itself. But to glimpse what may come, we must begin with what once stood. Long before Jerusalem became the battleground of empires and ideologies, it was the home of a temple, unlike any the world had ever seen. The first temple, built by King Solomon nearly 3,000 years ago, was said to shine with cedar, bronze, and gold. Crafted in reverence, designed in detail, it stood as a meeting place between heaven and earth. Its foundation was more than stone, it was covenant. It held the Ark of the Covenant, the tablets of Moses, the sacred fire. According to the biblical account, Solomon built it in the mid-10th century BCE. The ruins beneath the city of David still hold traces of that time. Burned debris, broken walls, layers of destruction that match the Babylonian invasion led by Nebuchadnezzar II in 586 BCE. Jerusalem fell, the temple burned, and with it, an era ended. Yet from exile came return. From ashes came rebuilding. In 516 BCE, under Persian rule, the Second Temple was raised, less grand than Solomon's, but no less holy. Over centuries, it was enlarged and transformed, especially by Herod the Great, who turned it into a structure of towering splendor, with courtyards, porticos, and massive stones, some still visible at the base of the mount today. But its glory, too, came to an end. In 70 CE, Roman legions under Titus laid siege to Jerusalem. Fire consumed the temple once again. The city was torn apart. The Arch of Titus in Rome still shows soldiers carrying off the temple's menorah, frozen in triumph and tragedy. Today, the Western Wall, silent and solemn, stands as the most visible trace. But archaeologists have uncovered much more. Massive Herodian stones, ash layers, and ritual items from both temple eras, telling a story carved into the earth. And now, just above these buried layers of time, a very different structure stands, one that stirs hope in some and fear in others. It rises like a crown above Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, known to Muslims as Haram al-Sharif, the noble sanctuary. To Jews, simply Har Habayit, the mountain where the divine once dwelled. It is the most contested piece of land on earth. For the Jewish people, it is their holiest site, the place where both the first and second temples stood, where the fire of sacrifice once burned, where the Spirit of God is said to have filled the Holy of Holies. For Muslims, it is the third holiest site in Islam. Here stands the Dome of the Rock, with its golden roof gleaming in the sun. Here, the Al-Aqsa Mosque stretches across the southern side of the mount, a place of prayer and pilgrimage for over 1,000 years. Two faiths, one mountain, a history soaked in blood, beauty, and belief. Since 1967, after Israel took control of East Jerusalem, a careful balance was struck. The Waqf, a Jordanian Islamic trust, would oversee the religious structures on the mount. Israel would handle overall security. This became the status quo, an uneasy truce, preserved not by trust, but by necessity. Jews are allowed to visit, but not to pray. Muslims guard their access fiercely, and the slightest change, real or imagined, can shake nations. Tensions flare when excavations begin. Outrage erupts when a political figure ascends the mount. Even a whisper of construction can spark protests from Cairo to Jakarta. As one scholar once said, "In Jerusalem, the past is never past. It walks beside you, and it watches." And on the Temple Mount, that past is always present, sacred, shadowed, and simmering beneath the surface. But what, exactly, lies beneath that surface? What secrets are hidden in the very bedrock of belief? That question leads us to the heart of controversy. And to a story archaeology is still trying to tell. Beneath the modern city, beneath the prayers and tensions, lies a silent witness, the earth itself. For decades, archaeologists have probed the areas around the Temple Mount, uncovering traces of the city's most sacred periods. In the city of David, just south of the mount, discoveries include ritual baths, or mikvaot, burned layers, and inscribed seals believed to belong to priestly families. Each fragment speaks of a living temple culture, embedded in daily life and religious devotion. Near the western wall, hidden tunnels have revealed massive Herodian stones, some weighing hundreds of tons, part of the support system that once held the Second Temple aloft. These stones are more than architectural feats. They are echoes of a vanished world. Yet, the moment excavation edges too close to the Temple Mount itself, controversy erupts. Nowhere is this more apparent than in the 1999 incident, when the Islamic Waqf, during unsanctioned renovations, removed over 9,000 tons of soil from beneath the mount. Dumped into the Kidron Valley without archaeological supervision, it was seen by Israeli scholars as an irreversible loss. That soil held history, and some say it was thrown away. In the years that followed, volunteers sifted through the debris, uncovering pottery, coins, and other remnants ranging from the First Temple period to the Ottoman era. But what was lost may never be known. Today, access to the Mount's substructure remains nearly impossible. Political pressure, religious sensitivity, and rising threats prevent even the most neutral attempts at research. The secrets of the sacred rock remain buried, locked beneath centuries of silence. Still, while archaeologists face stone walls, others are preparing something altogether different: a return to temple service itself. In a modest building in Jerusalem's Jewish quarter, far from the roar of politics, a quiet revolution has taken shape. Founded in 1987, the Temple Institute has dedicated itself to one goal: preparing for the rebuilding of the temple, not as symbol, but as reality. Here, ancient texts become blueprints, biblical commandments become handcrafted artifacts, and ritual vessels once used by the priests, long lost to exile, have now been recreated with precision. The golden menorah, the incense altar, the Levitical garments, all restored, waiting. But the vision goes beyond objects. Architectural plans have been drawn. Training has begun. Men believed to be descendants of the priestly line, the Kohanim, are being taught the roles and rituals once reserved for temple service. This is not a reenactment. It is preparation. Still, these efforts spark debate. Within Judaism, opinions vary widely. Some believe the temple can only be rebuilt by divine command or after the coming of the Messiah. Others argue for readiness, so that when the moment comes, the people are not unprepared. Outside Jewish circles, the controversy grows even louder. Critics see these preparations as dangerous, fuel for religious extremism or political unrest. Supporters, especially among Christian Zionists, see them as fulfillment of prophecy and a sign of the approaching end of days. Whatever one believes, the question remains: how can temple rituals resume when biblical law requires ritual purity, a requirement that hinges on a rare and nearly impossible event? The answer may already be in motion. According to the book of Numbers, chapter 19, the ashes of a perfect red heifer, an unblemished cow without spot or yoke, must be used to purify anyone entering the temple. Without it, temple service cannot begin. And for over 2,000 years, no such heifer has been found, until now. In 2022, a group of Christian Zionists in Texas, working in coordination with Jewish authorities, sent 5 red heifers to Israel. They were received with great interest and no small amount of scrutiny. Rabbis examined them closely, for even the smallest white or black hair would disqualify them. These calves are being raised under strict supervision. If, upon reaching maturity, even one remains without blemish, it could fulfill the biblical requirement. The ashes of that heifer could be used to restore ritual purity and unlock the possibility of renewed temple service. To some, this is a curiosity. To others, it is a sign. But to those watching the prophetic timeline, it is nothing short of extraordinary. The question now becomes, are these events isolated steps? Or do they signal the return of something long buried in time? And if the pieces are falling into place, how close are we to the next chapter? Across from the Temple Mount, rising above the ancient tombs that line its slopes, stands the Mount of Olives, a place rich in memory, prophecy, and mystery. But beyond its spiritual symbolism lies something even more unsettling: a geological fault line that cuts directly beneath its foundation. Geologists have confirmed that the Mount of Olives sits atop the Dead Sea Transform Fault, a seismic boundary that stretches from the Red Sea through the Jordan Rift Valley and into Lebanon. This fault has a long and violent history, triggering devastating earthquakes in 31 BCE, 363 CE, and 749 CE, all of which caused significant damage to structures in and around Jerusalem. It is a sleeping giant beneath holy ground. But what makes this even more profound is its connection to ancient prophecy. In Zechariah 14:4, the prophet describes a future moment when the Mount of Olives will split in two. Half of the mountain shall move toward the north, and half of it toward the south. For centuries, scholars and mystics debated whether this was symbolic or literal. Modern seismic studies suggest it could very well be both. The earth beneath Jerusalem is not still. The mount that once received Jesus' footsteps may one day tremble again. And if it does, it could change the very landscape of the city, topographically, politically, and spiritually. While the ground shifts quietly beneath our feet, history reminds us that sudden change can come without warning. And history, in this land, is never far behind. The year was 1967, and war erupted across the region. In just 6 days, Israel pushed back the armies of Egypt, Syria, and Jordan, redrawing the map and reshaping the future of the Middle East. But the most significant shift came not on the battlefield, but within the walls of Jerusalem. For the first time in nearly 2,000 years, Jewish forces stood at the Western Wall, weeping, praying, touching stones that had watched generations pass in exile. East Jerusalem, including the Temple Mount, came under Israeli control. It was a moment of triumph, a fulfillment of longing, and yet one marked by restraint. In a move that surprised even some within its own ranks, the Israeli government decided to leave religious control of the Temple Mount in the hands of the Islamic Waqf, preserving the status quo in order to prevent further bloodshed and international backlash. That decision, made in the tension of victory, has defined the Mount's fragile balance to this day. Jews could now visit the Mount, but were not allowed to pray. The Waqf retained authority over daily operations, while Israeli security maintained overall oversight. It was a compromise, born of necessity, and sustained by fear of what might happen if the balance tipped too far. This moment in history did more than change political boundaries. It shaped the future of access, worship, and the possibility, however remote, of rebuilding the temple. And yet, even with this cautious arrangement, the Mount remains under watch, because the risks of disturbing it are global. If the idea of building a third temple seems far-fetched, consider this. It is not a matter of engineering or resources or even religious will. It is a matter of global diplomacy and the razor edge of war. The Temple Mount is not merely a religious site. It is a political fault line that touches the hearts of over 1.8 billion Muslims worldwide. For many, any alteration to its status, real or perceived, is considered a red line. Even whispers of excavation or Jewish construction have sparked protests from Cairo to Jakarta, Tehran to Istanbul. Riots have erupted. Embassies have issued warnings. International councils have passed resolutions calling for restraint. The United Nations, the European Union, and multiple religious organizations have all voiced opposition to any unilateral change to the site's structure or governance. The risk is not just local, it is regional, even global. And yet, some believe the only path forward is through agreement. A future peace deal, they argue, could open the door to shared access, or even dual worship zones, a solution once unimaginable, but now quietly discussed behind closed doors. Supporters of the temple's return point to such a moment as their hope. Critics warn it could spark a conflict of unthinkable scale. Either way, the stakes are clear. Rebuilding the temple is not just a spiritual act, it is a geopolitical earthquake waiting beneath the surface. And in this city, where past and future live side by side, the ground is never truly still. While Jerusalem draws the eyes of the world, something broader is unfolding in the surrounding region, a quiet realignment of power, purpose, and prophecy. To Israel's north, a triangle of influence is taking shape. Iran, Russia, and Turkey, three nations with deep interests and ancient ties to the Middle East, have each established a growing presence in Syria, Lebanon, and the surrounding territories. Military bases, intelligence outposts, political alliances that were unthinkable just a decade ago. Some see this through the lens of strategy, competition for oil routes, trade corridors, and regional dominance. But others hear echoes of ancient texts. In Ezekiel 38, there is a vision of a northern alliance, hostile to Israel, advancing in the latter days. Scholars debate the symbolism, the geography, the names, but the parallels have stirred discussion from pulpits to parliaments. Even those who set prophecy aside cannot ignore the tension building around Jerusalem, a city barely the size of a modern airport, yet central to the beliefs, fears, and hopes of half the world's population. It is here, at this fragile crossroads, that spiritual conviction meets military preparation, and where ancient expectation begins to feel unnervingly present. If the players are taking their places, then the stage is nearly set. From buried artifacts to living blueprints, from geopolitical tremors to spiritual signs. The ground beneath Jerusalem is shifting, in stone, in spirit, and perhaps in destiny. Whether one sees this moment as the unfolding of biblical prophecy or the slow convergence of politics, history, and belief, the evidence is undeniable. Preparations for a temple, physical, political, and prophetic, are no longer whispers. They are actions made in the open, waiting for a window in time. But such a moment would not come quietly. To rebuild the temple would mean reshaping the world, politically, religiously, and emotionally. It would require sacrifice, negotiation, and a reckoning with centuries of tension. And yet, for some, it is not a matter of if, but when. Jerusalem remains the city of convergence, past and future, heaven and earth, hope and fear. And as the pieces continue to fall into place, stone by stone, law by law, sign by sign, the question is no longer if change will come. The question is, how will it arrive? And what will it demand of the world that watches?